biggest form of abuse, which is in every single case, no matter how mild, is the triangulation that goes on. And of course, triangulation is basically when parents pull their child into what is essentially an adult fight. The triangulation is used by both the alienator and the alienated parent. And the alienated parent is doing it completely inadvertently. Children are programmed to absorb their parents' body language from birth, because obviously they can't speak. And so they are always constantly, their brain is constantly looking for signs from their parent that that parent is becoming dangerous. And so their right brain picks up these microscopic changes in facial expression and tone. And what happens in parental alienation cases is that very often both parents show something called a still face, which is a face that has no emotion on it. The alienator shows it because it's usually got fury behind it, or massive distress or something, and the alienated parent shows it because they're trying to be neutral. There is no emotional communication going on at all. The child cannot read what is going on, but they are picking up, nevertheless, the emotions behind that still face. The minute their parent shows this just a flat face, a baby will lose control and become immensely distressed. Now, what happens in an alienation case is that a child is usually having to inhibit all their negative emotion. They're crushing it down and crushing it down and crushing it down. And if they see the still face, there's no repair. The damage that's being done inside them is neurological, as well as affecting them physically. And this is going on, in every case. What it will do is, because it's getting mixed messages, that's really damaging. So the brain will decide which message to go for, which is the one. And it will always be the parent who's the scariest. And they'll also see the flat faces when their parents see each other, because it's used to control emotion. The damage that's being caused is the subtle ways it's happening, but it's happening. And the way children cope with this is that it's all to do with how the brain is protecting them automatically. That's what's been happening. So the brain starts to try and work out what to do. So they engage in something called cognitive dissonance, where the brain decides. Now, what I've found is that cognitive dissonance is usually used in emergencies, when you're faced with, a dilemma, and your brain, and it's really like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And your brain goes, right, do that, and you just do the one thing. What happens in these children is they are faced with that dilemma day in, day out, 24/7. And so their brain is having to do that, all the time. And that damages the brain. As I said, it's only supposed to be used in an emergency. And what that results in is that the brain defaults to not thinking about things, but just making this split-second decision, which is, aligning with the scariest parent and then rejecting the other. And that leads to something called dichotomous thinking. People describe this as psychological splitting, and it's way, way more damaging than that. It's not something that's conscious. And with the dichotomous thinking, so everything becomes in sort of black and white terms. And anything, they can't cope with anything ambiguous. They can't cope with making decisions. This is the path to narcissism. And so what they end up doing, if there's anything that unsettles them, because it gets easier and easier and easier to do. So anything that psychologically unsettles them, the brain goes, ooh, get rid of it. So they get rid of it. So you'll see children, automatically going, no, I'm not going to contact. And also I need to change school. They can't bear any ambiguity at all. And that dichotomous thinking has been correlated through a lot of research on, really nasty personality disorders, very distorted thinking, psychosis even, and, depression, etc., etc. Because basically these children are being placed in a double bind. They're being told one thing, and actually what their right brain is picking up is something completely different. But nobody is bothering to explain what's actually going on. The neurological damage and the research behind it is actually all immersed in research to do with the effects on the brain of deception. Because children are being lied to in these cases on a massive scale. They are then expected to lie themselves, and alienated parents, they tend to lie as well, naively, because they might, with a psychologist, they might exaggerate something, they might try and put themselves in the best light. It's all deception, and we know exactly how deception affects the brain. There are solid brain changes you can see from this, the trauma from triangulation. And then what I went on to show is the truth, how you get to it using specialist forms of assessment.